Buying a new car in America has started to feel ridiculous. Prices climbed so high that the excuses started to sound normal. Cars have more technology now. EV batteries are expensive. Safety systems cost money. So maybe $40,000 or $50,000 is just what buyers have to accept. Then China put a real electric SUV on sale for around $15,000. That price should belong to something tiny, slow, and forgettable. But this is a modern EV with fast charging, smart features, and enough range to make the price feel almost suspicious. So, if China can sell this for $15,000, why do cars in America still cost so much? The car is called the Leapmotor B10. Most Americans have probably never heard of Leapmotor, which is part of what makes the price feel so strange. This is not Tesla. This is not Toyota. This is not Ford, Hyundai, or Volkswagen. It is a Chinese brand trying to win attention in one of the most brutal car markets in the world, where a new model can look exciting for a few months and then get attacked by something cheaper, newer, or better equipped. The refreshed B10 starts at 99,800 yuan in China, which puts it around the $15,000 range before talking about taxes, fees, currency swings, or what it would cost in another country. That alone is enough to make the American market look uncomfortable, because the average new vehicle in the United States has been sitting near $50,000. But the price is only the first punch. The B10 is a compact electric SUV, which matters because this is the type of car normal families actually buy. It is not an experimental pod built for one person. It is not a tiny city car that only makes sense in a dense neighborhood. It is an SUV-shaped EV being priced in China around the cost of a used car in America. And once you look at the higher versions, the story gets harder to ignore. The long-range version of the B10 uses an 800-volt fast-charging platform, the kind of technology people usually expect to hear about on more expensive electric cars. Leapmotor says it can charge from 30% to 80% in about 16 minutes under the right fast-charging conditions. It also offers up to 610 kilometers of range on China's CLTC test cycle, which is not the same as an American EPA rating, but still shows what kind of number Chinese brands are now putting in lower-priced cars. Then there are the features. Some versions offer LiDAR, some get advanced driver assistance hardware. The interior can include a large central display, a big head-up display, a panoramic glass roof, and seats designed to feel far more expensive than the price suggests. That does not mean the B10 is secretly a luxury car. It means China's price war has started dragging expensive-sounding features into cars that are not supposed to have them. And that is where the story really begins. For years, American buyers have been trained to accept higher car prices as something nobody can really avoid. A new car has to pass safety rules. It has to meet emissions standards. It needs airbags, cameras, sensors, infotainment screens, crash structures, software, driver assistance systems, and now, in many cases, expensive batteries. Automakers also have to pay workers, dealers, suppliers, shipping companies, finance arms, and everybody else sitting between the factory and the driveway. So the price feels explainable, painful, but explainable. Then a car like the B10 shows up and makes that explanation feel incomplete. Because the question is no longer whether modern cars cost money to build. Of course they do. The question is why the price gap has become so large and why American buyers have so few truly affordable new EV choices. In the US, even affordable new cars have started to feel expensive. A compact car can still cost close to $30,000. A small SUV can climb higher once options, taxes, fees, and interest rates get involved. Electric vehicles are even harder because many still sit at prices that make them feel like premium purchases, even when buyers only want a practical commuter car with lower fuel costs. That is what makes the Chinese price so powerful. It creates a comparison people were not supposed to make. If a modern electric SUV can exist around $15,000 in China, then a $40,000 or $50,000 car in America starts to feel less like nature and more like a system. Some of that system is real cost. Some of it is regulation. Some of it is wages. Some of it is dealer structure. Some of it is tariffs. Some of it is brand positioning. Some of it is the simple fact that companies charge what the market lets them charge. That last part matters most. A market with fewer cheap competitors gives automakers more room to keep prices high. A market flooded with aggressive competitors forces them to fight harder for the buyer. China has the second version. America has the first. The reason China can push prices this low is not just cheap labor. That is the lazy explanation, and it misses the bigger story. China built a full electric vehicle machine around the car. Batteries, motors, electronics, software, screens, sensors, metal parts, battery materials, and assembly plants are all part of the same industrial ecosystem. When those suppliers are close, hungry, and competing with each other, automakers can move faster and cut costs in ways that are harder to copy from far away. Battery cost matters most because the battery is one of the most expensive parts of an EV. China has spent years building battery companies, battery supply chains, and the factories that make the rest of the car around them. It also has a huge domestic EV market, which gives companies the volume they need to test new models, lower costs, and learn quickly from buyers. Then, the price war makes everything sharper. Chinese automakers are not competing in a calm market where every brand politely waits its turn. They are fighting in a market where BYD, Geely, Chery, NIO, Xpeng, Li Auto, Xiaomi, Leapmotor, and many others are all trying to prove they deserve attention. If one brand cuts price, another adds features. If one brand adds range, another improves charging. If one brand brings premium tech lower, the next brand has to answer. That kind of pressure changes the product. A feature that used to feel special starts to become normal. A screen that used to sell an expensive trim becomes expected. Fast charging starts moving downward. Driver assistance features move downward. Better interiors move downward. The customer starts getting more because the companies have no choice. That is why the B10 matters more than its badge. Leapmotor is not the biggest name in China. It is not the only company trying to do this. The important part is that a brand most Americans barely know can put together an electric SUV at this price and still make the spec sheet look serious. That tells you how intense the Chinese market has become, and it also shows why American prices are so hard for normal buyers to accept. The uncomfortable part is that American buyers probably cannot get this car for anything close to the Chinese price. A $15,000 EV in China does not become a $15,000 EV in the United States just because people want it to. The car would have to deal with tariffs, regulations, safety certification, shipping, distribution, parts, service, dealer or direct sales infrastructure, software rules, and political pressure. The biggest wall is tariffs. Chinese electric vehicles face a 100% US tariff, which means the price advantage gets hit before the car even has a real chance to compete. That policy is usually explained as protection, protecting American workers, protecting factories, protecting supply chains, and protecting the country from depending too much on China for the next generation of cars. There are serious reasons behind that argument. Cars are not just consumer products. They are manufacturing jobs, battery plants, national security concerns, software systems, data questions, and huge pieces of local economies. If cheap imports destroy domestic factories, the lower sticker price can come with a much bigger cost somewhere else. But protection also has a price, and normal buyers are often the ones who pay it. When cheaper competition is kept out, the market does not feel the same pressure. Automakers have more room to keep selling expensive vehicles. Dealers have fewer low-price threats to compete against. Buyers have fewer options when they walk onto a lot and realize that even the reasonable car costs more than they expected. That is the trade-off nobody wants to say too clearly. Blocking cheap Chinese EVs may protect parts of the American auto industry, but it also helps protect America's expensive car market from the kind of competition that could force prices down. The buyer may never see the cheaper car, but they still live with the higher price. This does not mean China has solved everything. A low price is powerful, but a car still has to earn trust. Someone buying a car has different worries than someone buying a phone charger online. They need the car to last for years. They need spare parts. They need service centers. They need warranty support. They need crash safety. They need software that does not become annoying or outdated. They need to know the brand will still be there when something breaks. That is where newer Chinese brands have to prove themselves outside China. A spec sheet can win attention, But ownership is what builds a reputation. If parts are hard to find, resale value collapses, service networks are weak, or software creates problems, the cheap price starts looking less impressive. There is also the question of real-world range. Chinese CLTC range numbers usually look higher than what American buyers would expect from EPA testing. Fast charging also depends on the charger, battery temperature, charging curve, and conditions. A car that can charge quickly on paper still needs the right infrastructure around it. Those details matter because the point of this story is not that every Chinese EV is perfect. The point is that China is forcing a harder conversation about price. Even after the caveats, the B10 still shows something important. Modern EV technology can move down market faster than many Americans are used to seeing. A cheaper EV does not have to look like a punishment. It does not have to be ugly, painfully slow, or completely stripped of the features people care about. China is proving that affordable EVs can be more ambitious than that. And once buyers know that, it becomes harder to convince them that expensive is the only realistic future. The B10 may never become common on American roads, but it can still matter to American buyers. Because the car market is global, and pressure does not always enter through the front door, Chinese brands can compete in Europe, Latin America, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Mexico, and other markets where US, Japanese, Korean, and European automakers also sell cars. If those companies start losing buyers overseas to cheaper Chinese EVs, they may have to rethink their pricing and product strategy everywhere. That can eventually reach the US. Maybe not through the B10 itself, but through the expectation it creates. If buyers around the world can see a modern electric SUV priced far below what Americans are used to paying, the pressure builds. People start asking why the affordable EV exists somewhere else but not here. They start asking why automakers keep promising cheaper models but releasing expensive ones. They start asking why the cheapest competition is treated like a threat instead of a benefit. Automakers can only dodge that question for so long. Tesla has already shown that price cuts can move an EV market. Hyundai and Kia have shown that value still matters. Toyota and Honda built their reputations on giving normal people cars they could trust. American brands know there are buyers who want EVs, but not at luxury prices. The problem is that wanting to sell affordable cars is not the same as being forced to sell them. China's EV market forces companies to fight on price. America's market gives them more room. That difference shapes what buyers see. In one market, the fight is over how much technology can be pushed into cheaper cars. In another, the fight is over how much buyers can be convinced to finance. That is why the B10 feels less like a random Chinese SUV and more like a warning from another version of the car market. The real question is not whether Americans should all drive Chinese cars. That is too simple. The real question is whether American buyers are getting the full benefit of competition. A protected market can save jobs, protect factories, and give local companies time to catch up. But if that protection lasts too long, it can also make expensive cars feel normal. It can make buyers accept bigger loans, longer payment terms, and fewer affordable choices because they do not see what aggressive competition looks like somewhere else. The Leapmotor B10 makes that problem visible. It shows a version of the EV market where a modern electric SUV does not have to start near $40,000 or $50,000. It shows what happens when automakers are pushed so hard that they start putting better technology into cheaper cars instead of saving it for higher trims and premium badges. The car itself may have limits. The China price will not translate cleanly to the US. The range number uses a Chinese test cycle. The best charging hardware is tied to certain versions. The brand still has to prove itself outside its home market. But even with all of that, the question remains. If China can make a modern electric SUV this cheap, why are cars in America still so expensive? The answer is not one thing. It is supply chains, tariffs, regulation, labor costs, dealer economics, brand power, interest rates, and a market that has not been forced to compete with the cheapest EVs China can build. That is what the $15,000 SUV exposed. It did not prove that every American car should cost $15,000. It proved that the price of a modern car is not just about the technology inside it. It is also about the market around it. the competition allowed into it, and the people who benefit when prices stay high. For American buyers, that may be the uncomfortable part. The future of affordable EVs already exists somewhere. The question is whether they will ever be allowed to buy it.